Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission for Tuesday, July 16th. We have a pretty full agenda this evening, and we are anticipating quite a few comments. So before we get down to the public hearing and action piece, I'm going to make a couple of statements about coming up and giving testimony. But before that, let's go ahead and move down through our agenda. We do have an established quorum this evening, and I'm looking for a motion to approve minutes for July 2nd, 2024.
Mr. Chair, I motion to approve minutes for July 2nd, 2024.
Second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Recognizing the persons not on the agenda this evening? Seeing none, go ahead and move on to conflict of interest, ex parte contact declarations. Commission? Hearing none. All right, down to the main heat. Public hearing and action this evening. We have two things that we're going to be talking about this evening. The first is going to be a Turner House Depot application for a preliminary plat change, and also for the Bennett Ranch Station. We're going to start tonight with the Turner House Depot application. What I would like to ask from you is if you come with any comments or anything that you would like to put on record, I ask that 1, you hold to the 3-minute rule. 2, please ask questions that we will answer after you are done asking your questions. And 3, please address everything to the commission and not to the applicants or the developers. With that being said, I'll go ahead and start off with planned unit development for the Turner House Depot applicant from Gin Group LLC. The request to amend prior approved planned unit development is located on the west side of Elmcrest Street and south northwest Marathon Way. The new proposed plan results in 300 new housing units, an increase of 12 units from the original plan, with a mix of 2 and 3 bedroom units. Ms. Brenda.
Okay, as you mentioned, that's kind of it in a nutshell. Turner House Depot was previously approved for 288 units. A portion of that was for live-work units. They are requesting to amend the PUD to increase the number of units to 12, as mentioned. So there will be a 300 total residential units at the location and no live-work units. So that it will reduce the amount of traffic by 30 units, 30 cars. So with that, we will bring up the applicant.
Okay. Applicant.
Hi there.
Hi there.
Evening Council, Tyler Phillips with the group. As Brenda mentioned, we're just trying to tweak an existing approval to respond to the housing market in Mountain Home. The amendment will hopefully go a long way to continue the success of phase 1 within Turner House Depot and bring that diversification of product types into Mountain Home. The changes we feel are minor in the overall project scope, and hopefully limited questions related to those changes. But here to answer them as needed.
Commission, do you have any questions around that before we bring it up? Okay, I'll go ahead and step back.
Thank you so much.
I'll go ahead and open it up for a public hearing and action. Again, this is for the planned unit development change for the Turner House Depot. What's up?
Yes, sir.
Come on up.
Thank you.
I need your name and address. Yes. Your name and phone number and all that.
My name is Stanley Scroniolo, and I'm at 1370 Juniper Street in Mountain Home, 647. The only query is, I remember during some of the discussion months ago when this was originally talked about, but there was a little mention made of safety regarding the airport, which is right next door. And that is sad commentary. That could have a huge impact as our community grows and as the airport grows. I wonder if Planning and Zoning Commission could seriously consider how that impacts and if there needs to be any changes made. Thank you.
close the public hearing for that. I'll bring that back up. Bring them to answer the question, even though this doesn't quite pertain to the change of the PUD. There was discussion about airport safety prior to on that one.
I don't recall exactly what was in the prior application with regards to airport safety. I don't think that we have but we should probably ask the applicant.
Okay. Well, you remember that?
I do. I won't remember the terms exactly, but we did go through the formal, approval process with the airport committee, and I forget the actual entity name, but we did get their approvals, as well as we have a height restriction within our PUD that limits the overall structure height related to those single-family homes. So I believe that height constraint should hopefully minimize any airport impacts.
Thank you.
And that was through the FFA. They filed their official application because they're within, there's requirements, it used to be 2 miles, but they were in the airport's area of impact. So they filed a request, I believe, and don't quote me to this, I believe it's a 7401 request through the FAA. The FAA came, they did their study, and they determined that everything in Turner House Depot was below the threshold, and so they got approval from the FAA to move forward.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner, any other questions?
With this change with the airport, I know that you sent out, did you get any feedback from the committee, airport committee with the issue or the alteration of the original?
We received no letters for or against this amendment. Like that.
Oh, I was just gonna ask that, when we went through the process of getting this done the first time, did that, I mean, I don't think it was us, I think it was another, yeah. So was a condition brought up that the FAA had to be, like, that they had to go through all the application stuff, or was that already a requirement that they had to go and apply with the FAA?
I believe it was a requirement due to this
Okay.
distance from the airport.
Okay, and the only reason why I bring that up is because he does bring up a very valid point, the gentleman that had the commentary. And so I wanted to make sure that if we have any other projects that come up in that area, that we know kind of what that process is going to look like. So having that information, I think, is invaluable.
And no proposed height changes within the current amendment, so we would still abide by the current PUD height restrictions that the FAA.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much for enlightening me.
Has there been any concern or questions about noise? Because we're building right next to an airport. I've lived next to the Boise Airport. I've watched the developments around there put in language into their sales documentation that, hey, you're in an airport area, there will be noise, things like that. Because at some point in time, once that's developed, there's going to be noise complaints. Once this airport grows, you bring in some twin-engine aircraft, maybe some light jets. People are going to complain. We're going to be right there with the police. We're going to have these complaints to the city. So what's going to be done to prevent that kind of a situation for the community?
Is related to, I imagine the first lever to us would be within the HOA and CCNRs that are part of the community. I would have to punt and apologize. I do believe noise was a part of the FFA or FAA application. I don't have the details, I guess, at hand.
I'd like to know what those requirements are and what's going to be done to put that language into HOA stuff.
Yeah, and CCNRs related to the noise adjacent uses.
To watch the complaints, having worked at Boise Airport, we used to receive regular complaints all night long about aircraft. You're going to be right around the community, and that airport is not going to get small.
I remember in our first approval, that actually came up next to the off-road track that's adjacent to the west, actually in addition to the airport.
Yes, sir.
So I'll go back and I'll confirm how we're handling the noise, concerns within the HOA and CCNRs.
All right, Commissioner, this is the PUD change. Looking for the motion.
Sure, we get for the condition based on the
That would be a legal question. To be honest with you, I remember having the conversation the first time go around, and that wasn't a CCNR. So there was noise
state as number 14, that the applicant acknowledges that the proposed project is close to uses that promote loud noise volumes, Mountain Home Airport, Optimist Park, Mountain Home Industrial Rail Park, and the applicant stated that future buyers would be required to sign an agreement acknowledging the effects of the surrounding property, so it appears that's been addressed.
Perfect. Okay, appreciate it. So, answer your question. No. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the request to amend the Turner House Depot R4 PUD. And that is P&Z application 24-31.
First, I have a second. Second. You know what, fella, you're new. I'm gonna second. You're gonna get that one. That's yours tonight. All right, I'm gonna start with you, Philip. Hey, your name.
Hey.
Hey. Hey, Philip. Okay, Shan.
Aye.
And Rob. Rob, sorry. Aye. And aye for me as well. Motion passes. Would you call it? Aye. Phillips.
Rob.
Take a call, Rob. Sorry.
We're gonna put you right back in the seat, though.
We are, yes, we are gonna, don't go too far. Our next item this evening is preliminary plat for the Turner House Depot. And this is a request to amend the prior approved preliminary plat located at the west side of Elmcrest Street in the south northwest Marathon Way. It is the new proposed plan that results in 300 new housing units, an increase of 12 units from the original plan with a mix of 2 and 3 bedroom units. Ms. Brenda.
Okay, as you mentioned, so we are just increasing the number of units by 12. And those, I believe, are in the northeasterly portion of the project. Obviously, up here in this area, I think, is where they added those. So an additional change from the original is this was going to be a city park up here. It is no longer a city park, and it will be part of the amenities to the subdivision.
Okay. So, bring you back up. Is there anything else you would like to add to?
I don't believe so. The minor adjustments to the prior PUD just help align the project with current market conditions and a focus more on a comprehensive amenity program to benefit the community, which is outlined in green there.
Perfect. Step back, I'll open it up again for public hearing. Seeing none, go ahead and close the public hearing. Thank you for being so supportive. And Tyler, I'm going to bring you back up. This is fun like this. Musical chairs. I like that. Commission, any questions?
Okay, so kind of to make it clear. So that area where all of those 12 units are now, that was going to be a city park. Is that correct?
In the prior approval, correct, yes.
Okay.
And then we chose to take it off of a public commitment and then do a private amenity to the community.
Okay, got it. And so then that's the green space that's in the middle, right?
Correct, yep, in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see it designated as a community center. So that'll be where the kind of central community center building would be. And then the amenities would flow around that in the green space.
Perfect. So then the deviation from the PUD, the original PUD, is that very thing right there.
The number of units changed, yes, and then they have taken apart. No longer have
Right.
a city park here.
Okay.
And no live work units, correct.
Okay, so then. It seems pretty cut and dry.
And Mr. And it does meet all the requirements as that's required by the preliminary plat for all the details are there.
Commission, any other questions? Okay, entertain a motion.
You would? I got it.
Okay.
There you go.
Chair, motion to approve,
Right here.
okay, to amend the Turner House Depot subdivision preliminary plat consisting of 28 plus acres, PZ 24-30.
I have a first, do I have a second?
Second.
A second. All right, Rob, I'm gonna start with you.
Aye.
Shannon.
Aye.
Billy? Philip?
Aye.
Aye for me as well. Motion does pass. Tyler, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this moves us down to property while you're all here. The Bennett Ranch Station this evening. The first part of this is going to be a vacation. This is a request to vacate a parcel of land in Harris Edition, parcel, that big long number. The parcel is located at the corner of the north of West 5th North Street and west of North Haskett Street, consisting of approximately 32 acres. The subject parcel will be part of a larger subdivision, preliminary plat application PZ 2429, and planned unit development application PZ 2427, identified as the Bennett Branch Station.
Okay, just as you mentioned, so the applicant is seeking to vacate that area of Garrett's Edition, to prepare for the approval, hopeful approval of the Bennett Ranch Station plat. And so therefore, there are no roadways or easements within that plat to, for consideration for vacate. It's just the lot in and of itself.
Okay. Okay, bring up the applicant. All right, so just to make sure that we follow formalities, I want to make sure you come up and have a conversation about vacation, if you have any.
Speak for the record. The voices.
Taryn Mitchell, 535 Sawtooth Street, Mount Home, Idaho.
Dan Weeds, 18714 Fargo Road, Wilder, Idaho.
I don't know if we have anything spectacular on the vacation, so it's, I want to say the original plat and subdivision was from the early 1900s. And so we are seeking, it's only a portion of the greater property, so we're looking to vacate the subdivision name. That would be cleaner, and to be then paved the way for being part of the new proposed subdivision.
Okay, perfect. So in that case, I'll go ahead and have you sit back. Now, for all of you who are very anxious to shop at the bit and have a conversation with us, this is only for the vacation. So you're gonna come up again in a minute, but this is only for the vacation part of this. Anybody have anything you want to talk about for the vacating part? Okay. Seeing none. I'm going to close that commission. Entertain a motion for the vacation.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
If I
ma'am.
might ask the applicant one question.
Oh, please, definitely.
Is it your intent to move forward with the vacate regardless, it is not contingent upon approval of a PUD?
Correct.
Thank you. Go home, people.
Mr. Chair, considering a motion to vacate lot 65 of Garrett Edition containing approximately 32 acres, PZ 2439.
First by Rob, second.
Second.
Second by Christina. Philip, start with you.
Aye.
Billy? Sam?
Aye.
Rob? Aye for me as well. Motion passes. Moving on. Planned unit development for the Bennett Ranch Station, 864 units in total. This is from Karen Mitchell and owners and lease. A request to approve the Bennett Ranch Station planned unit development application. The Bennett Ranch Station consists of multiple annexed parcels consisting of 246.20 acres. The subject is side portion of the Railway Industrial Park located on the north side of West 5th North across from Bradford Street on the north property line and North Haskett Street on the east property line. The development will consist of 864 2-, 3-, and 4-bedroom apartment units arranged in 9 24-unit and 18 36-unit buildings, community buildings, community pavilions, recreation areas, and sports courts, and approximately 40,000 GSF of commercial, retail, and or office space. Bennett Ranch Station will consist of 6 phases. It's Bennett, Miss Bennett. Oh my God. Brenda?
Yes. You know, you do so good at this. You kind of say everything in a nutshell. But again, this is a proposed mixed-use I-1 PUD. The mixed use would be for a residential and then a commercial component. The applicant has, I believe, 36,000 square feet of commercial pad space available, along with the 864 residential units. And those will be in 2, 3, and 4 bedroom configurations.
Okay. Bring it back, please. Yes.
Should I clarify that now?
You're the expert.
So to start on.
So,
reason for that is C4 residences are permitted with the conditional use. And I1 residences are not permitted at all. And so we have to rezone it to something which conforms. That is the closest fit. So that's what. So it's just a little typo there.
Okay, perfect. No, appreciate
And
it.
one comment I might make,
Yeah.
the Wheats and Company owns the ground, not the applicants, I'm just a farmer.
Oh, yeah. The applicants,
Okay,
whatever form that applicant can take.
perfect. Share with us what you got.
Okay, so Brenda, thank you for summarizing very concisely, I would say, what is I don't know how complex the application is, but it's big. And so there are a number of components. So I want to make sure that I address questions as they arise and don't give you information that you already know or that may not be germane to the conversation, to furthering the conversation and why we think this is a good thing. So, would now be a good time, Brenda, for the presentation. This, yes,
Yeah, yeah.
it's relatively long, so I'm going to go through slides pretty quickly. I want you to go home too. So,
Does it have a good soundtrack?
I fancy myself pretty tech savvy. I haven't figured that out yet.
That's my house.
No problem, Mallory?
What's that? Oh, sorry. My apologies.
Control enter. It should go full screen. There we go. Perfect. Madam President, Commissioners, thank you for this opportunity. So like I said, I'm going to try to be respectful of your time. We have what we believe to be an important project to Mountain Home. Important for many reasons. We realize that 864 units is a big pill to swallow. What we do want to stress is that we have no intention of building 864 units at one time, or possibly at all if the market does not absorb 864 units. We have no intention of taking on $160+ million project if the market won't bear it. So this particular section, so it's the entire PUD is 864 units for approval, plus 36,000 square feet. But we're proposing as phase one, 72 units. There are two 36-unit, 3-story apartment buildings. We do not plan to build any commercial initially, but we do have set aside approximately 12,000 square feet of neighborhood commercial for that initial phase. Okay. So I think that lays the groundwork. What we're looking at right here is what you can find on the city website. This particular map, I think, is the area of impact, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? And so what I would like to give reference to is that this was done in 2010, roughly, but it still is what the city uses. The yellow indicates residential, what the city had seen as a good use for the land area in residential. We'll fast forward to 2019 in the comprehensive plan, and in the 2020 comprehensive plan that we have, you can see at this time, by this date, this had been annexed. And so that's where, so Dan, if I speak in error, I know that there's a lot of discussion that went under, or was underway in the process of annexation for this land. And so, but somewhere along the line, it was decided that rather than residential, there would be industrial with a buffer zone, okay, as part of an annexation agreement. So, okay, as part of the annexation agreement, you can see, right, well, hopefully you can see, this right here was planned as a buffer. The stated land uses for a buffer wasn't really necessarily concrete. We do believe that there was residential or higher density residential as part of that buffer zone, as well as retail and commercial, to serve as a buffer for detached single family detached single-family houses that are located in and around it. Okay, this is, oh heavens, is part of a CRS engineering report that was provided to the city on how that industrial campus might develop, so conception. And what I think is important again is that we see the existence of a buffer zone, no concrete or definitive land uses, but a buffer zone against the rest of the industrial campus. Okay, so what we are proposing, and you can see in this particular image, is a buffer, very similar to what you saw. So in order to reach 864 units, and I'll mention why that's not the magic number, but the number that is our goal. We did have to, and with, I would say, a number of workshops, community workshops, where we were discussing this particular project with the general community. So it was open to everyone, the general public. And Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we had 3. And so a comment that came up from a concerned neighbor that lives down here in this neighborhood was that, well, it seems to me that you've done your research, so I'm summarizing, but we're afraid that if they're 3-story buildings right next to the street, which they're not right next to the street, but if they're close to the street, it'll feel like I think they called it a wall of humanity. So in an effort to not create a wall of humanity, we went from 3 stories to 2 stories. It is an extra expense because now we have more buildings in order to get to the number. And that is the reason for this. Okay, and I'll explain if it comes up. I'll explain why it's here as opposed to somewhere else, but here. Okay, so I'll quickly cycle through. This is what the site looks like, more or less today. Okay, and then now you can see the units and their the buildings and their distribution on the site, and you can also see what we're proposing for the first phase, which is 72 units, these 2 buildings, 1 community building, and then all the infrastructure, including 2 roadways to gain access to this proposed first phase. I will take a moment to say that I think Dan and I we've embarked on this mission now for about 3.5 years, I think. It's been a long road. Neither one of us is really a developer at all. We have an architect and a farmer, an astronaut farmer. And so there's been learning lessons that anybody gets for a project like this. One thing that we found out is that there were lots of people that wanted to coast in our wake. As we blaze the trail, then we'd get people that would come follow. What we were hoping for is that somebody would actually take the lead. And we found that it was a tricky, the economics are tricky. And so nothing came to fruition. We had some businesses, I mentioned this in the workshop, that approached us, but really they're looking for somebody else to pay for infrastructure, to pay for roadways, to pay for things. And then they'll come to Mountain Home. So when we realized this, Dan called me up one day and he said, I've been thinking. And whenever I get a call from Dan Wheats and he says, I've been thinking, I know something. But he said, what's stopping us from doing, look how far along we are, what's stopping us from doing this ourselves? And I said, well, besides fear, nothing, and risk. So that's why we're here in front of you, the 2 of us, presenting this.
I might make one comment in this whole process, is that everybody that came to us, we had a lot of businesses come with the Mountain Homes. Without exception, every one of them, there was no housing. They couldn't, unless it was a $420,000 house or 40 blocks or something, there was no place for them to live. So we lost every single one of them, amongst other things, on housing issues. And there was nobody that really had a problem with the buffer being in the industry. And one important note here look at the rail, and we didn't realize this when we first worked on the rail part, the first couple thousand feet of rail are twin tracks. So twin tracks, at the time, didn't seem to be important, but trains can't pass. You gotta have an inbound train and an outbound train. They can't pass each other. So we had to have those twin tracks in place, which we do, but that didn't allow rail spurs off of those twin tracks. So when CRS first did the rail project, or this concept for us, they had rail coming off of that. Well, that was an impossibility. So phase 1 really didn't lend itself to rail at all. The phase 2 through 9, north of the railroad tracks, is what really lends itself to industry. The twin tracks stopped before Bennett, which is now Bennett Ranch Parkway, but before the solar project. So everybody that came on the housing, one of the requirements was we subordinate the ground. So we had to give up our equity interest in the ground to let them finance it. Well, that was iffy at best, and then of course when the interest rates went up, nobody could afford to do it. They couldn't make it work. So if we were going to subordinate the ground, we might as well subordinate it to ourselves. As part of this project, the pro forma, there's not enough margin that we have to donate the ground to ourselves. We can't pay ourselves back for the ground, but that's okay because it's a legacy project. This is not something we're going to sell. So the financing of this thing really became the component, and this project is financed. We worked with Bank of Idaho. I think they submitted letters, or Charlie Kuba submitted a letter. This is gonna, if we go forward with this thing, it's gonna go. So that was a big issue with the interest rates the way they were. Mountain Home, we flew through the credit process through the bank, but when it got to the bank underwriters, they were a little more concerned about Mountain Home. So they decided that, listen, if you think this is a good deal down there, you're gonna have to put some money into it along with your ground. So here we are. I'll stop talking.
I don't mind, when somebody else talks, it's great. So I'll quickly address transportation. So another key item, maybe even it's top 5, is from various industries is, well, if we build an industrial warehouse or fabrication plant or something of the sort, how do we get out of Mountain Home? Well, currently we all know there's no easy path. You have to go through town. Unless you're going to Twin Falls, and in which case you can bypass it. If you head to Boise, which pretty much everybody does, they need a route. So we've embarked on a private roadway project, and it's a big one, so it's 2 lanes each way. And we currently have it roughed in for our traffic circle up to here. And we do have the beginnings of it right adjacent, so right directly east of the solar farm. It is our intention that in order to facilitate the bringing and courting of industry into Mountain Home, that we build this roadway. It'll, I do have another slide, I can't remember where I put it, otherwise I'll click to it. It'll connect it onto Sunset Strip at McMurtry on the west end. So I did find with CRS Engineering, that has been in the plans as part of a master transportation plan in the city as far back as 2005. So to go and connect, and then an alternate would be to connect to bypass that would then pop out near the Chevron on Sunset. So without further ado, well, I will mention one more thing. We do have other interested partners now that we're financed and we've gotten this far. We have other interested parties that are interested in purchasing land. They're interested because of the multifamily component. They want, in order to come here, they need bodies, they need people, and people need housing. So one of them is a charter school. Dan, I believe there's an LOI on a senior living facility.
Here it is.
And over here, blocked in, would be a family activity center, like a recreation center of significant size. So we're talking about 200,000 square feet enclosed. Okay. This shows, you've all suffered through my presentations more, I think, than anybody. We are very conscious of the water. So I think, what do they call it, the elephant it in our workshops as a consequence. We get it. Water's a concern. We live in the desert. We are suggesting to take farmland that uses a tremendous amount of water, take it offline in favor of a less water-intensive use, which would be landscaping, and to service the multifamily and the neighborhood commercial, and eventually our industrial endeavors. And so it's part of the Bennett Ranch water rights, which is 500 acre feet. Again, if I say anything in error, correct me, Dan.
Right, every year
Every year.
that we have to use.
So 500 acre feet for those of us that don't deal in acre feet, I'm not a farmer, it is equal to about how much in gallons?
220 million.
220 million gallons.
And that's
per
only
year.
between the 1st of June and the end of August. On the outside of that, we have all the water in Canyon Creek. We want to demand it.
And it needs to be used.
Yeah, and water rights, if you don't put them to beneficial use, 5 years you lose them. So we have to use the water there. And we can use the water for industrial purposes. We'd also like to propose at some point in time capturing and reclaiming that water. Boise City's doing that with Micron now. And we would like to look at that in the future they're doing it through reverse osmosis, but we'd like to put something like that in. Water, if you capture it, water's important. And we all know now how valuable water is, and we have a lot of water. We just want to maximize the use of it. The best use of it is not, for us, agriculture.
All right, so again, we have our two 36-unit apartments, 3 stories. We have the community building's a story and a half. We'll go over a project that is similar to this that was completed in Virginia that I did. I've been here 4 years now, so about 5.5 years ago. As part of the second phase, which will include to the right of us, will be a commercial pad and a 24-unit 2-story building adjacent to West 5th North Street. Okay. Oh, landscaping is important. We are firm believers in being water-wise. I thought water conservation landscaping would catch on, but Mr. Schroeder said that's not catchy enough, so we'll call it water-wise.
I just wonder about the buffalo grass.
I have it.
There it is.
There it is.
I like green. I like green.
Well, I had to tell him last time that buffalo aren't allowed in the city.
So, yes, it's reasonable.
Yellowstone.
We don't have a lot of grass, but we do have a few park spaces, and that is as part of phase 1. And we have an outdoor amphitheater that we'd like to include in this, and buffalo grass makes a good seating surface for people for outdoor performances. All right, so what will they look like? This is an example of a project that was completed that will, well, really it's the floor plan and the layout is this. And so this is very much what you can expect to find with Bennett Ranch Station. It won't be called artistry, by the way. I do have to throw this in here. We will not have a pool.
There's too many of them here.
I wasn't going to go there, but we do have water, and we fully support the 2 pools that we have that are forthcoming. So we would like to patronize those. Okay, so you can see what is I'll call these typical layouts. So first and second floors. These are garden style, which means that we have a covered, but it's considered exterior stair that accesses units on both the front and the back. If you look at the site plan, you'll wonder why are the buildings oriented as they are. It's not a good idea to orient your buildings east-west. As much as you can avoid it, east-west means that you're going to have these units, if they face west, just imagine how hot it would be at this time of year as the sun starts to set and you cook the people in there. So it is to reduce your mechanical load. Okay, and the 3rd floor. And here's an example of what the interiors will look like. So we've entertained furnishing possibly some of the 3rd story, depending on demand. Right now, we're told that there is a demand. We weren't specifically told how many, but, you know, possibly even a few hundred units, excuse me, a few dozen units will be furnished.
And it might look a little bit more rustic.
Dan likes rustic, I like modern.
Ranch, but, you know, the ranch.
Yes, that's what I'll say. Okay, so I'll cycle through these pretty quickly. Okay, we do have very nice outdoor spaces planned
For each floor.
at each floor, at each building. Correct. Oh, and each floor, yes, there are exterior balconies for each unit. Okay, we do have a few scenarios in between buildings that'll be very nicely landscaped. Okay, community building, we have 3 community buildings. They are planned to be just under 5,000 square feet. So the first phase will include a community building, and then the rest of the development as it progresses will get 2 more. We're proposing that each of the community buildings have different amenities. So you won't have a community building with the same amenities. So we're firm believers in supporting our local businesses. We have some very good local gyms. I found in my experience that gyms with treadmills and ellipticals in apartment complexes really never get used. Somebody has some gusto in January, by February, they're not used again. So we will be having other amenities. So this is an example of the kinds of amenities you would have. They are available, I don't know if this question will come up, they are available for all tenants. And we are open to renting the use of an entire community building for activities or for events. And so on the interior,
And I think you're gonna have a kitchen.
they have kitchenettes.
Already kitchen. Yeah.
Kitchenette, that's important. So, yes. So we do have interior conference rooms as well that can be used for those, let's say, that have a home office that just need a conference room to rent. Oh, and then there's a small bar. This is intended to be a home theater room. We may have a small gym if that's what the market asks. Okay, so I do have some more slides on the back end, but like I said, I wanted to make sure that we gave time for questions and comments.
Perfect, thank you. I'll go ahead. You two go back and then I'll open up the public hearing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before I do open up the public hearing again, real quick, please stick with the 3-minute mark. I do also ask that if somebody comes up and speaks to something that you were already talking about, please let them speak to it and don't come up and repeat it. We've heard it, just make sure. But if somebody doesn't say something that need to be said, by all means, please come up and share. And also, please address everything to us, not to the developers. With that being said, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. And
Just to add one thing. So these hearings are a little bit different than a regular town hall. So I just want to let you know that. So Idaho Code 676536 provides that in every case where an appeal is provided, a transcribable verbatim record of the proceedings shall be made and kept for a period of not less than 6 months after final decision. So what we're doing here is like court. So there's a transcribable record of everything everyone says. And so it's important that we know who is speaking and we know what they're saying, because in any Supreme Court case you read about an appeal of a land use decision, they literally word for word what an applicant says or what somebody responds. And so if someone asks you to be clear or to repeat what you say or to say your name, it's just to make sure that we have a verbatim transcribable record so that they're making their decision based on the substantial competent evidence that's provided by both the applicant, by staff, and then by your input that's relevant to the application. So that's all.
Chuck.
Yeah. proximity of this Bennett development to the airport the same? We have the same problem as the Turner development. We're gonna have, right under the flight pattern, you should come in to do your downwind leg of runway 10. And I just wanted to try and get the same safeguards that Turner had to come up with. I would like Bennett to be required the same thing. You know, have the tenants know, the purchasers know that they are going to be close to an airport. I assume that they looked at the FAA documents and what they have to do for height restrictions. They said they only want 2 stories. So I'm sure they're fine with that, but the noise complaints, especially if the industrial side of this project develops. I'm sure, you know, they're already talking about extending that runway, you know, for jet traffic to come in here to support that industrial complex, and that is going to be noise that these people are going to have to deal with, and I think that they need to know about it going in so we don't have to close our airport because of complaints. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Rod Dudley. 1390 Rosewood Street. First of all, I've been at a few of the workshops, and although Mountain Home isn't real excited about growth, it's something that's going to happen. And in talking with them at the workshops, a lot of it makes just really good sense. And they have listened to how many, that wall of buildings going down 5th Street was also a concern of mine. And the 2-story thing helps alleviate that look by seeing just 2 levels, and then behind it, the 3rd level, it won't be that noticeable. So the people living on the other side of the street won't be overwhelmed by it. So I appreciate them listening to that. They've taken into consideration a lot of how it will help Mountain Home. For example, bringing in industry that, although again, the city does hurt many citizens, especially old timers like me, don't want to see that. But we need that income level to be higher so that we can afford things like movie theaters that my parents closed down. Bowling alleys that I used to bowl at, you know, closed. We'll get our pool, we see it being done. But it's important it's hard to grow when you know it's going to affect so much. And where it's going to be, I think is a good idea too. It's close to everything to get in and out of as far as industry is concerned. Looking for entertainment, people will be able to maybe stay home and have that here. But if we can't get them to make the money, we're going to see them go to Boise still. Senior living there. One of these days I might be old enough to be in one. And I'd like to have a nice place to be in. And you can see what the pictures what that would be like. That's really all and I think it'll be more affordable in some of it, because they are planning that it will be owned by one person and then rented. So it's not that big. But that's it. Thanks, guys.
Lyle Fritsch, 1362 North 14th East. I'm puzzled, I don't understand a lot of this, but about the acre feet, from what I was able to Google, if you have a 4-bedroom apartment or 3-bedroom, you're going to, over a period of a year with that many units, you're going to use 124,416,000 gallons. Oh, the use on with that I mentioned here is 124,416,000 gallons a year. I think I heard 120 million for the acre feet that was available. That's a lot of water. If I'm growing crops, I can soak the ground, but I can't soak the ground with sewage and gray water. I need to know from whoever's running this project when the sewage plant is going to be capable of handling this, and are these things done incrementally? Or do you just dig a hole and crap in it until it's full, then you build a few more apartments and dig another hole? We're having problems, and I know that there's expensive facilities going to be required for this. So those are some of my concerns, but I'll just list some questions I have. What is the projected cost of the wastewater facility? When will the sewage treatment plant be completed to accommodate all of this? And who's going to pay for it? When will the sewage treatment plant, where will it be located? What is the estimated monthly rent for these 3-bedroom apartments? Who's going to be inhabiting these things? What is going to be the financial status of the people moving in? There is water rights. A friend of mine told me that there are water rights, but if you suck that water out, as I mentioned, put it on to crops, we know where that goes. But not if it's black water or gray water. And we're talking about 2,592 to 3,450 extra people in that piece of turf. Are we going to be able to accommodate them? And I guess my time's up.
Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Nicholas Gaetchen. I live at 471 Northwest Mallard Avenue, which is in Patriot subdivision right across from the proposed, this whole entire proposal. I've talked to many of my neighbors, and me included, and I'm not particularly thrilled about this, but I believe in property rights and it being absolute, so if someone wants to do something on the private property, they can. I do have some concerns though with the proposal, and I guess one of the main concerns I have is not water in this particular scenario, but it's being proposed at 864 units, and I know they're doing it in phases, and I know they said that they're going to be doing 72 or 36 at a time, but I believe all of this will get built eventually. So you have 864 units. How many vehicles is that going to be? It's not going to be 864. You're looking at, I don't know, maybe 13 to 1,500 vehicles just right there. So we have that. Then we have the Turner houses that just down that road are getting built right now. Then you have the other apartments that are closer to the railroad tracks that are getting built right now. Then you have the apartments that are getting built on Northwest Bradford on the other side of the subdivision that are getting built right now. So this whole entire area is going to explode with how many people we have in such a small area. I understand that a new road is getting put in that's going to be going off of Sunset, but my main concern, and that on top of that, we're looking at charter schools. What's that going to be? A couple hundred more people? We got a senior living facility. What's that going to be? A couple hundred more people? Then a rec center. Not too much of an impact, but senior living and charter schools on top of all that. Now, if we're talking about fire, which happens in the desert, right? And we need to evacuate this whole entire area, and we only have that. I don't feel like this would be not in the best interest of this community, just doing that one road, and we're having all that new growth. What about city services getting it? Law enforcement, fire, those are other things to be concerned about. So that's some of my main concerns. on fire, evacuating the area in case of emergencies, something to consider. Now, one of the other reasons why I bring this up is, and I'll speak really quickly, is if this is approved, I don't believe that a waiver should be granted at all, because this is going to be a huge impact on the city, and the city is going to have to help. Even if you pay for everything else, we got fire, we got police, and everything else that needs to be built up to support this. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Eddie Wilson at 1450 Northeast Quigley Street. I'm a family man, got a wife and a couple of kids. Both my kids are at the 4-H fair right now, so I took a couple hours out to come up here and talk about this very important measure. You guys took a couple hours on Saturday to go visit my kids, bid on their sheep. I'd appreciate that. So
Mine first.
no. So a couple years back, I retired from the Air Force after 20 years in this community, and we have a house. We love it. I volunteer with youth soccer, Heroes on the Water, is an awesome organization that supports veterans and first responders and their families. I work with the church. We got lots of stuff going in this community. This is my home, and I believe in it. I'm also a landowner over by the airport, so I have concerns about some of the things that are brought up. But as I head out over towards the marathon, towards where this is happening, because I help some individuals in that neighborhood with some projects, I see it's beautiful over there. It's the farmland. Oh man, I wish we could keep beautiful green farmland, but the city needs development. The city needs housing. The city needs businesses. The city needs the tax base to be spread out to help us more than that one farm. Dan's farm is amazing, but what he's going to do with the buildings is going to be so much better. And I appreciate Dan's commitment to this community, investing $160 million into our community and putting it all on the line. 100% risk for him to put these housings in force, which is going to directly help hundreds of families and indirectly help thousands in this community. The taxes that are going to come from it are going to help to build that wastewater plant that one of the individuals was speaking about. It's going to build parks. It's going to build roads. He's spending millions of dollars just on a road to help traffic to not come, through the city and help with that. And I appreciate that effort. Some of the concerns about water were brought up. They use big numbers, 220 million gallons that he gets to use, that he's donating to the city to allow us to do it, which is going to be, instrumental to helping our city. Wells in the area will be able to rise as opposed to continue to drop, and it's going to be very beneficial there. He's building affordable housing over there as opposed to these $400,000 or $500,000 houses that I can't afford, other people in this town can't afford, and it's going to be diverse, mixed use, so that people can have a little bit of it and be able to live over there, and I'm really excited about it. The people are going to whine about airport noise because people are people, but that doesn't mean the airport's going to close down. The airport was there. We have absolute property rights. The previous individual, said he believes in absolute property rights. I believe in absolute property rights, and I'm just glad that Dan is able to put those out and be able to help us improve this community. So I really encourage you guys to, vote for this, approve this, and help him to help our community. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's perfect. State your name for me again.
I'm Stanley Spagnuolo, and I'm at 1370 Juniper Street, Mountain Head. Some of my concerns in this area, the 3-story, how sure eat what these crops provide for cattle and for us. And then there's a traffic circle that's indicated on the diagram and the big trucks that go back and forth to Marathon would have a more difficult time maneuvering through that. And when is the dog leg on 5th North that goes across the tracks right there by the old Taco John's where it goes in, when is that going to be straightened and widened to 4 lanes? That would help alleviate a huge amount of congestion in that area that already exists, especially for the big trucks. And that was my question and my request, that you consider disapproving any rezoning on that land in that area, and that it be retained for agriculture. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Lee Dyer, 1100 Northwest Pintail Street. I've heard the euphemism affordable housing several times. That's Section 8 housing, government subsidized housing. I live adjacent to this. It's going to lower my property values. I'm getting nothing out of this. The crime rate's going to go up. The congestion's going to go up. It's going to lower my property value. My cost of living is going to go up with this, and my quality of life is going to go down. What in this proposal addresses that, if anything? I haven't heard anything yet. I would just like to know what percentage of this is going to be Section 8. Because I've lived in several communities where they built Section 8 housing adjacent to something I own, and I lost 25 to 50% of my property value immediately, as soon as they rented the first unit.
Thank you.
Eric Lehman, 1128 Amanda Ray Court, Idaho, Idaho. My concern is, water is one, of course. We've already discussed some of that, but as I understand, that property is irrigated mainly with surface water that comes down the west side canal. So how are we going to turn surface irrigation water into drinking water? Is that going to be piped to our water treatment plant to be processed? Who's going to pay for that piping of that surface water to be prepared? Another concern is the west 5th North. Is it going to require expanding? Who's going to pay to expand that for left-hand turn lanes into and out of? It's already difficult to turn onto that against traffic. What's going to happen when we have, 4 times as many vehicles in the area and trying to turn left or right out of the existing roads and new roads? There is eventually going to be a road that goes out to the freeway, but there is no expansion of the roads, planned at least, to get people to Albertsons or Walmart or to the downtown area. How are we going to get all those people out to this area? Is there going to be somehow are we going to fix that? That would be my question. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close
Chair.
the.
May I read the letter from, that we received via mail?
Please do.
So we received received a letter on July 15th from June Zilich. If I mispronounced that, I apologize. She states, the map concerning the proposed plans north of West 5th North Wolfpack area is not accurate. My property is not and will never be part of Wolfpack. There is no police protection out here, as the Mountain Home Police Department cannot decide if it is city or county. Therefore, the theft and vandalism will only increase. The sheriff department refuses to do anything because it is city. The city signed a contract with the railroad to maintain the tracks if it was annexed into the city. They have never maintained it, and it is an extreme fire hazard. This development will add to and increase these problems out here. June Zilich.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing for this and bring back the applicants. So you two heard, where would you like to start with addressing any of the concerns?
Let's see if I remember them all. This is most certainly not Section 8 housing. It's never been planned to be Section 8 housing. It does not qualify as Section 8 housing. It's market rate housing. So no component of it will be Section 8. No component of it will be LIHTC, low-income housing tax credit, or trying to remember I think it's 421C or 421D, something of that sort, HUD housing, which is also low income. So no component of this is that. This is we believe, a not highest density land use that's possible. It's possible to go more dense. So we thought this was a good compromise to provide the housing that the market studies that's provided by the military. So the Air Force Base has provided a market analysis and market study, and it's been stated a number of times to the city staff and city personnel that housing is needed in a very bad way, and not a small amount of housing. We're talking probably, at one time, it was over 1,000 housing units in one form or fashion. We were told specifically in several meetings with the Air Force Base. Now I'll make sure I couch this. They're not endorsing our project in any way, but they have been apprised of our endeavor and have reached out to us and said that they do need rentals, apartments specifically, and they need a lot of them. So hopefully that addresses the number, why we're embarking in this endeavor. That none of this is Section 8 or any variant, and the density is not as dense as it could be. We do know that this is very much needed in Mountain Home. The multifamily component itself gives way to other items that the U.S. Military has told us that they need, which is they need, one of the markers for BRAC is the state of our schools and employment for the spouses of our servicemen. Both of those things we hope to improve with this project. I'll jump into transportation. So we are currently, given the enormous expense of building roadways and infrastructure, that is why we have the traffic circle itself is designed specifically for tractor trailer traffic. There are 2 lanes, it's commercial traffic. So it's an 80,000 ESAL, it's built to ITD standards. And so that is being done to address concerns of tractor trailer and heavier flows of traffic to guide them to the freeway as quickly as possible based on our existing conditions. So the number of roadways that we're proposing, so Bennett Ranch Parkway is the one that runs north-south, and then we have Helen's Way, which runs east-west. Helen's Way is I think to the foot, or within 10 or 15 feet of a mile long. We are starting and possibly even building the entire roadway privately. And then at such time that the city expresses interest in the road, or if not, which is okay as well, that roadway can be accessed by all those that are in the area. Bennett Ranch Parkway is for use again, for not just tractor trailer traffic, but for traffic of the growth of this particular area to get onto the freeway quickly. So I think that summarizes the traffic.
Yeah, all of our traffic is interior on Helen's Way. So
There we go.
We won't be out on Fifth West, it'll all be interior.
So Helen's Way is being built so that the traffic goes to Helen's Way and then really goes to Bennett Ranch Parkway. And then from there, Bennett Ranch Parkway north. And I think it's on part of the master transportation plan. Elm Crest Road is to serve as conduit to get to Air Base. So that in the event that we have, we'll just take a stab and say we have 500 servicemen that go to the base. The traffic will go to Helen's Way, to Bennett Ranch Parkway, around the traffic circle, down Elm Crest, to Air Base, and then out to the base. That's to alleviate traffic congestion at the railroad crossing and in town.
Do you want to make any comments about water? Again,
You might go back and make comments, you have the math on single-family residential or compartments versus irrigation water, his numbers are a little bit off on
Little off.
domestic water.
I'll commend him, commend the gentleman and the community member for being concerned about water. We're not ignorant of it. There is a lot of water available that Mr. Wheats has, so water rights that he owns. We fully intend to make good use of the water. I'll be very careful how I phrase this. I can see Mr. Schroeder looking at me. We fully intend to use the water that Mr. Wheats has for the benefit of the community, not just the benefit of this particular development or proposed development. So we have 500 acre feet of water to use. We'll agree to disagree that the agricultural land is a better use for that area. Well, that's for the landowner to determine. It hasn't, again, I won't put words in Dan's mouth, but I would say that farming is a tough business, and it's difficult to make a living as a farmer. This is coming from a layman, not being a farmer. And so this is a way to create a legacy project that does continue to fund infrastructure expansion and for what we believe very strongly is a better use of the land rather than agriculture.
And one comment I might make on the water, in the city of Mountain Home, I think 5/6 of your demand for water goes to irrigation. Only 1/5 of it actually goes to potable water. Do you want to make a comment?
I don't want to interrupt you, but when you guys are done, if the chairman will allow, I'd like to ask that question.
I do. I have one question though.
Sure.
When it comes to that water, it sounds to me as though you are keeping the water rights and you are not giving it to the city, correct?
No, we're not giving those water rights to the city. We're gonna use the water to offset what might be irrigation water from the city. We don't wanna impact the city any more than we have to. Now, we can capture that water and process it to a potable standard. I don't think that we're that short of water that we can, there's a stigma with reprocessed water. We can use it for industrial uses, we can use it for landscaping, for irrigation there, which is what we're doing now. I think that the Mountain Home has, of course, we're in the city, we paid the water rights, or in lieu of giving Marathon Way to the city, we've paid for that water, and of course we pay the normal rate every month for the demand of the water. But we aren't going to take the water and impact the Mountain Home city's water. We can, we've offered to take Optimus Park off the city wells, we've offered to take the golf course off the city wells. There's a lot we can do with that water. So we have the 500 acre feet between 1st of June. We also have shares of water. We have deep wells if we want need the water right now, but at some point in time, we may want to bring one of our well permits over here. That's in the future with, see what industry brings. The demand for potable water, actually in an apartment, I don't know, what is it, it's less than 1,000 gallons a day, I think.
No, it's much less. So, I mean, typically you'll have, for a standard single-family detached, single-family house, it's, according to the EPA, it's 3,000 gallons per month. That's for a house. And so, for an apartment, it's about 2,000 gallons per month. And so it's considerably less than what farmland, especially depending on what kind of crops they're growing, which determine the water usage for that agricultural land. Again, if that were not so, not just in our research, but I do rely very heavily on the county water report, SPF Engineering. Very good report. And the findings of the report are favorable to development, to a managed development.
Jeff?
Two more topics. You want to ask a question, and then I'll go on to the sewer.
Okay, yeah, because that was another question, or something I had for these guys during deliberation, because minus our public works guy right now, but, so I just want to clarify, because this question came up, so you intend to use the existing water rights, surface water rights that you have, for irrigation purposes in your development?
Not irrigation only, we can use it for any purpose, but we don't intend to use it for potable water at this time.
Okay, so the potable water for your development is coming from the city's water system?
Correct.
Okay, that's all. Clarification.
So the other, I think one of the other questions was sewer and sewer treatment plant. We proposed creating a new urban renewal district around my entire development. There's one owner. We'll take that in, capture the taxes off of that and invest. We can invest in sewer treatment plants, economic development, well permits. We can do anything to bring that, much like Marathon has done. So you've got one building with Marathon, which is supplying all the money for your current urban renewal district. Marathon occupies, what, 10 or 12 acres out of 40. I mean, they've got some deserts there. We've got, if this project goes forward, we've got enough ground in phase one for another 15 Marathon-sized buildings of industrial, whether it be distribution or manufacturing. This project has a lot of components with it. One of them is we need housing for the industrial park to move forward. Otherwise, we're better off just parking that for a while until somebody does exactly the same thing as we're proposing. Because we can't get industry down here. And I think, the timing is just perfect. If we do have a change in administration, we bring some of these jobs home. Mountain Home's in a pretty good position to get some industry. Boise's filling up, Eastgate's full. Some of the guys I know, Tommy Alquist and North Ranch and Sky Ranch are full. We're involved with the city of Caldwell on the Farmway Road project. We've got a lot of ground there. Idaho Farmway is our farming company. They're going to cross the Boise River and create an industrial park north of the Boise River to the Notice exit. But they're 4 or 5 years off from to even get across the river. We're going to have that available right away. If we do some of these foundational things, is what we're proposing, we can get that industry. Mountain Home's not for everybody, but Caldwell has been a pretty tough competitor, but they're filling up. We could get a lot of that down here if we move pretty quickly. I have no doubt these apartments will fill up. There's no question. Most of it's probably going to be industrial jobs and the Air Force base, probably. Who knows? They'll be whatever they are, but none of it is Section 8. The other thing we propose in the urban renewal district is, at some point in time, maybe not right away, but we all took a tour of CSB and their sewer treatment plant by invitation from Simplot. The sewer treatment plant they have would actually accommodate what we're doing here in its entirety was $1.3 million, which is nothing. That's nothing. At some point in time, we'll probably want to build our own plant out there at some point where it makes it advantageous. And the site, it's not what you guys are doing is taking it from a city well, irrigating it, doing exactly what the farmers do, capturing it, running out into an evaporation pond, trying to evaporate as much as you can, and irrigating a little bit. We'd like to capture that and just keep reusing that water, and keep recapturing it, is what Boise is doing. But at some point in time, first off, it needs sewage to run a sewage treatment plant. Until we put some houses out there, we don't, so we'd have to be on the city system for a short time. Other than that, we'd be ready to go.
Okay, so I have one question and then just a comment from the board, because we're lacking our guy. I just want to give you a legal answer to parts of the question. First of all, so it's your intent for these to connect to the city sewer system?
Correct.
It is. So with respect to that, taxpayers don't fund water stuff, nor do they fund sewer stuff, because those are called enterprise funds, and so they're legally separate. And so any capacity increases that are required as a result of this project will be funded by connection fees. Those connection fees are they're set by Keller, and they're legally required to include the cost of increasing the capacity of the system. I don't have an answer about what the system capacity is, but just from a legal standpoint, addressing some of the concerns from citizens who are, so for the benefit of the members of the commission, when you pay for a sewer connection, a new sewer connection, you're paying for the existing infrastructure and also for facilitating future expansion of that based on, kind of like on the same token as the development impact fees, which is the next thing I was going to do. I'll let the applicants continue answering.
I think the only other thing I might add, this project is not for sale. These are rentals, they're not for sale. The project is a legacy project, so we'll keep this project forever. I'm not a developer, I'm a farmer. Tax-wise, I can't sell it. Otherwise, I'd pay 50–60% of it in income tax, and I'm not gonna do it. So what we're doing is what I hope the city does, and looking at urban renewal districts, is this is generational wealth down the road. The urban renewal district lasts 20 years or 25 years. Then all those improvements that we make out there within the urban renewal district come to the city. It's an enormous amount of money. So this is what we're trying to do. And everybody works at putting out fires today. But if you look at what Marathon's done, and Marathon's done with the urban renewal district, and that small little piece that they've collected the money on, this is enormous. You're looking at one building versus maybe 200 out there. So this is something for the future, to start building that generational wealth or legacy for the city of Mountain Home. Not to mention the taxes. I think in one fell swoop, I think we're going to increase your property tax collections, not grants or anything else, but by a quarter or a third, I think, than Josh told us. It was substantial.
It's a lot.
A couple $1 million a year.
Commission?
Couple questions. One thing that kind of caught my interest, you said you're gonna help the schools. Since Idaho law does not require impact fees by developers, how are you gonna help the schools? Your comment was you were gonna help the schools?
No, there's a very real possibility that a charter school public charter. So the American Classical Schools of Idaho, so ACSI, is very, very interested. We've met with them several times. So it's a charter school, not a private charter, but a public charter, which means it's open to everyone. And
It's not property tax based.
it's not property tax based, that's correct. And so I think my exact words, I'll make sure I parrot myself, is that helping the schools is helping the military base. So we help the military base because the military base says we need improvements to our schools. So that's the information I was attempting to share.
Okay. Mr. Chair. Madam Administrator. Have we, I just want to make a record of this, have we received a comment from the Mountain Home School
So we submitted a traffic impact study as part of this application. The application was actually pared down. So originally we were told maybe even 1,200 units would be planned. And so that got pared back. Our traffic impact study actually includes the possibility of 1,200 units. And so for Elmcrest was analyzed as part of the study. It's an A right now, and I believe it goes to a B, I believe. So it's been a little while since I've looked at it exactly, but.
Mr. Chair, there is with regards to the roadways in that area, Elmcrest is scheduled to be expanded. I don't believe that's till like 2040, however, and I think that goes to 5 lanes. Also, there is something within the capital improvement plan where we will be hope to expand Haskett probably within the next year. And there are plans for a light at that location at Haskett and Airbase. So
That's great.
So, you know, we do have this traffic impact study. It was dated from 2022, and it did mention that there was 1,200 units as opposed to the 864, but it didn't mention a commercial component to it. So, you know, those are changes that are not within this impact. As far as the roundabout is also not in here, so that could also be a mitigating factor for traffic. So,
Are you talking about the roundabout at Elmcrest?
Elmcrest, correct, and Benner, pardon.
So, it's my understanding that the Corey Barton project that's currently underway out there, there's a restriction for left turns coming out of there onto Fifth, heading over towards Albertsons. What is the plan to set that up for success right now?
I did not study for the village as far as that left-hand turn goes. I vaguely remember a discussion at the council level with regards to that left turn. I don't recall if it was to the left turn Haskett to Fifth or the left turn from Fifth onto Fifth. So that
my
runs by Taco
understanding-
John.
My understanding was southbound Haskett, eastbound Fifth is restricted to, you weren't gonna be able to come from the village to turn towards Albertsons. That said, what's the plan for your project? How is that gonna impact that road? And then how is it gonna impact, I believe, what is the worst intersection, Haskett and Airbase? Is that not true? I mean, I believe that's correct. That is currently the worst intersection, according to the state, is Haskett and Airbase.
Commissioner Mills, great question. So I believe the worst intersection is actually, I always forget the name of the road, the one that's right behind Walmart that goes on to 8th, followed by the one you just mentioned. So I had to throw that in there. So the traffic impact study includes this scenario. Again, I was present at the meeting with, for the village, with the city council. It's I believe they conditioned it. Again, it's not fresh in my head. It was conditioned to say that they were gonna limit the traffic turning left, just like you mentioned. And so our goal, well, first of all, why would somebody go across the railroad crossing? And that's to go shopping, grocery shopping, things of that nature. That's why we include a neighborhood commercial component. And so we don't want to limit the commercial, using terms I probably should, like expediency of downtown Mountain Home. We don't want to harm the businesses that are already there. So Albertsons and Ace Hardware and so on. We don't want to encourage, to the best of our ability, encourage people to go down Fifth and go over that at-grade crossing. We believe that with the city's cooperation and expansions of Haskett and Elmcrest, it'll be faster to go that way onto Airbase and go under than it would be to travel over the at-grade crossing. So that's why we're doing a traffic circles. I was dubious years and years ago. They do facilitate traffic much better than stop signs or stoplights. And so a lot more traffic can get through there. So it is very, very, very likely to speed up the flow of traffic and alleviate congestion at Bick in that at-grade crossing area.
And then I think to further add to that, our intent is to take the traffic that we have interior on Helen's Way. Now, some of it can come out on Bradford, some of it can come out on Jerome. But if they want to go to Boise, or they want to go to the base, or if they want to go through the traffic circle, they'll go all the way down Helen's Way to Bennett Ranch.
Or stay interior to.
So it's inside.
Can we put that back up on the screen for everybody to look at? That route. Has there been any consideration to putting a traffic circle at Haskett and Fifth to maybe alleviate some of that traffic and move that traffic through that intersection?
Commissioner Mills, great question. Has not come up in our discussions with the city. Traffic circles and roundabouts require quite a bit more right-of-way,
Yes, sir.
and I believe that's why it hasn't come up.
So my understanding is the intersection when you cross the railroad tracks towards the west end of your project, that's going to alleviate an intersection for the south side of out by, what is it, Highway 30, that last one out there. So we all know that Mountain Home is ripe for growth. We know that there's likely to be growth out there on that farmland. So now we're gonna be right back in the same situation. We're gonna alleviate a crossing to the south and yet add it to the north. To get it first come, first served, right? But I think we need to be smart about how we're planning that. Has there been any consideration to go under the tracks on the north side of town towards Sunset and maybe do an underpass with a lane into Sunset?
I'm gonna say not any serious consideration because we're dealing with UP, Union Pacific. They're not unfriendly, but they're not necessarily friendly. And so they're going to restrict. They want the least amount of interruption to their service possible. We would need the full support of the city and ITD. It would be, the planning and design would take some time. So there's a possibility maybe in the future, it is part of our discussions, it came up but was quickly kind of tabled. We do have access immediately to an at-grade crossing, so if there's questions about how that gets done, again, Mr. Weeks has an available crossing that he can close down, correct me if I'm wrong, on the south end of town that is really, I'm going to say mostly used by him, and then can be relocated. Union Pacific doesn't want to grant new.
Is that the same one that the city's talking about in this conversation?
No,
The furthest
so-
one south?
Years ago, if you remember, Cavazos was there. I don't know if you were around
Yes, sir.
when Cavazos Restaurant was, and it's a medical clinic or something out there now. I don't know exactly what it is. We had an at-grade crossing, which is about where this one is gonna, this new one is gonna go. We have 1,200 acres of farm ground south of Mountain Home. We have two at-grade crossings there. I've offered to give up our farthest south one, which we very rarely use, close that one off and move that one to what would be Murtry. That way the city's not losing their 5th and Main at-grade crossing, even though they don't want traffic to stack there. Our whole objective is to take traffic out, use the traffic circle because traffic doesn't seem to stack much at the traffic circle, and give them a chance to go north to Boise, south to the air base, or come into town.
Okay. Appreciate it.
And if Elmcrest is gonna be a 5-lane road, it will match the Bennett Ranch Parkway because it's 5 lanes. Center turning lane, 2 lanes each direction. We had to move the traffic circle north because we didn't want to impact those property owners. And I had the ground available, so we just moved it north. So it's gonna take a little bit of realignment. But it will resolve Marathon's issues now. Marathon can't turn south without coming into the oncoming lane, and they can't turn west without coming in there. This will resolve that as well.
Where are those other two crossings, cross streets are they at, that you have your own?
It's actually on Highway 30,
Are you putting that?
past, what is it now, Main Street. It used to be Hamilton Road. It's the old DBKY farm. the Bass Mafia, Vermintola, Benning, and Trouble. So there's two there, it'd be the farthest south one.
Not 18.
No,
Not that far.
farther out,
Oh, farther.
farther out, much farther out.
Okay, okay. That's all.
Can we put those crossings up on there? Can we do the maps on there? Is that possible?
So,
The ones, are you?
so why don't you, let's go back to the project first. For advertising.
I don't know where we're going.
There's a down the center.
Middle.
There was one.
You gotta do what you did.
There we go. Okay.
So
So
pull
do we
that
wanna
down,
go-
so go to the solar park. If you don't know, the solar facility is ours. We have that ground there in the gravel pit north of that. So Bennett Ranch Parkway, it doesn't show on this picture, is gonna go north, down to the north end of the solar park and cross there. That's a proposal if we want to use that at-grade crossing. We do have access, we do have the ground at the end of the solar park, down to George Mansfeld. And George Mansfeld, we've engaged him, we've been buying up ground out there. Mansfeld wants to sell that ground to us, so we'll acquire that. That takes us all the way. I bought Teresa Geary's place and Stan Hall's, that Hall parcel. So we, now, once we have Mansfeld, we have access to bypass. So if it's problematic with UP being such a benevolent company, that we can't get across there for some reason, or if they're gonna require a flying bridge across that, which may be something that ITD can do, because the reality of it is, you've got the Bruno Highway, you've got a little short section of Elmcrest, which is still the Bruno Highway, and then we're gonna go all the way with a 5-lane road. They might as well make it the Bruno Highway. But who knows what they're gonna do. If we don't cross there and get onto Sunset, we'll go straight west and come out there on bypass near where Simplot is.
Okay.
The object with industry is to get the truck traffic out of there within 10 minutes on the freeway. That's our goal, is 10 minutes.
So when you said at-grade crossing down here, south of the solar plant, that's on our rail, or that's not an at-grade crossing? That's city rail, not UP rail?
Correct.
Correct.
Just making sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
our ground, your rail.
So,
We already have a crossing there.
so Taryn, can you show me where, so you're gonna do the at-grade crossing right there where the intersect, or where the arrow is?
Nope.
I don't even know if I'd call this an at-grade crossing, we'll clarify really quickly. So this is.
Go farther north.
This is private.
Okay.
By function, in working with the city to create a roadway, Bennett Ranch Parkway, it will be a crossing of city rail
Yeah.
that services the industrial traffic and trains. UP, they don't have any of this. They're here.
Okay.
So the at-grade crossing that we're talking about, I think is what you're asking for.
Yes.
It's further south.
Well, the one where we're gonna place it is north.
Right, but he's
So
saying
take
which
that
one are we?
cursor right there, right in there.
That's where it's gonna intersect Sunset.
Sunset, yeah,
Correct.
Highway 30.
No, it'll go up here and intersect here.
Oh, I figured that.
Gotcha.
That's McMurtry.
This is McMurtry.
That's where McMurtry is.
Correct. That's McMurtry?
That's McMurtry.
Okay.
Right here.
So then if you wanna go way south,
There we go.
go clear south, out past, keep going.
Yep, keep going.
Keep going.
Clear reverse.
Almost, keep going. So we have one crossing right there that we're gonna keep,
Okay.
right there. So keep going 2 miles farther south. We own that, that's the BBKY. Keep going. Little bit more, right there.
Oh, okay. So that's the one that will close.
That's the one we would give up, if they require us to. The traffic is so minimal, I don't know that it makes any difference. But it is an at-grade crossing and they can't get rid of it. I should have stepped in then at the time when they were taking the one out at Cavazos and stopped them. But I didn't. So there's a lot of components to this.
Yes, sir.
Anyway. Not at all.
You have one?
So, trying to give you the most direct or linear answer. The first phase, the construction schedule is 14 months. We have a very, very good contractor, general contractor that can build them quickly. 14 months is even a stretch to build 7
It's here.
units. Still happens, he's here. So if there are questions for construction, we have the guy. On top of that, we have the design timetable. So, cut to the chase here. I'll say that we have, let's say, a 16-month, no, I'll say 18-month, a year and a half, per, we'll say, 100 units. I don't want to speak for our contractor. 18 months for 100 units, roughly?
Plenty, yeah.
Plenty. So, if we fast forward at full build-out, we're looking at, what does that wind up being? I mean, we're looking at 10 years, roughly. We'd like to build them more quickly. Again, if there's daggers, anybody's looking, we've got the guy to ask. But it all depends on market absorption. If there's no demand, we will not build.
So, Rich, do you have anything else?
And then if you want to mention the EDI, there's a bunch of EDUs that may not be used, or may not be expired. So your equation may be off a little.
So if this is approved tonight, then what this will happen is that means that what they're planning, we have to go to the preliminary plat next.
Right.
But then from there, whatever they plan and is approved, they're full bore go for it.
After the preliminary
After the
plat.
preliminary plat.
Wait, they would still have to ask for, they would still have to apply for building permits, though, and the building permit is the final. Is that correct?
Is that where the EDUs are consumed? Is that the building permit?
Typically is.
That's
As a
exactly what it is.
multi-family, we always do the
I could be wrong.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, in your packet, I had hoped Mr. Curse would be here to discuss this with you. Keller and Associates has submitted a letter. Have you reviewed that letter with regards to water and wastewater and this development? Okay. And so.
You asking me or them?
Well, all of you. I assume you've read the letter. It is my understanding that this development, in order for this development to go forward with this letter, that this development would have to pay for another well to be installed. And then also there are concerns with the wastewater lagoons. I can read the letter to everyone if you wish, and what it says directly. It says we have, Keller Associates Inc. has reviewed the preliminary plat for Bennett Ranch Station. We reviewed the applicant's package for conformance with the city's capital improvement plan and existing infrastructure. We have the following comments. Water. The estimated maximum day water demand for the development is 830 gallons per minute. This large of a demand is basically committing one of the city's existing wells to the development. It is recommended that the development not be allowed without providing a large potable production well to the city. The estimated peak hour demands of the development is 1,450 gallons per minute. This large demand will stress the available delivery supply and start to bring pressures at the top of the main pressure zone, which is East 19th North Street, below the DEQ minimum pressure requirements of 40 psi. The proposed utility layout did not provide water line sizes, assuming a 12-inch diameter water line on Helen's Way through the development and 8-inch diameter water lines elsewhere. The development will struggle to meet the 2,500 gallons per minute commercial fire flow requirement. Modifications to the water line alignment and sizing would also be necessary for sewer. The existing sewer system appears capable of handling development's estimated sewer flows. However, if additional phases development occurred near this development, it may trigger additional trunk line improvements / construction. The existing lagoon system is reaching maximum capacity for winter storage. The city has reported the lagoons are full during recent wetter years. The large development is not recommended as the lagoon system does not have adequate winter storage. The city is currently in the process of designing an additional winter storage lagoon and proactively seeking funding, but the funding is not guaranteed. Signed through Keller.
Were you privy to that letter?
No.
Okay.
The letter was uploaded to their application portal.
Okay. That changes things.
So I guess my question is why was that letter not provided to?
It was uploaded to his portal,
Okay.
in his application portal.
You're looking at me, so I'll respond. I did see, not a letter, I saw a map, and it listed EDUs from Keller.
It was also added into there, so there was
Different
two uploads.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, we're more than happy to respond to that. So I don't necessarily agree with all of the claims, I'll say. And so we have EDUs and capacities that are stated from Public Works and City Public Works. This is planning for full build out and is attempting to place the burden of an entire well onto a single development. I will say that we do have water rights already and wells available. They wouldn't be, that again, we already mentioned that we would move a deep well to service this and additional. The industrial part. So we do know that there's capacity, or I say we know. According to Public Works in the city, we have an estimated 2,400, 2,500 EDUs available. And so I don't think the math is wrong from Commissioner Roeder. I think it's right, but it's available. And so we're not proposing that at 864 units that the city then doesn't expand or add an additional well. There's another well that's coming online apparently after, I don't think that's accounted for in the letter. At least there's no mention of it. So well
17 is
Well
coming
17.
online. It's my understanding that we currently have 1,300 EDUs available, and when we get 17 online, we'll have, I believe, an additional 1,300 EDUs available. I cannot tell you that we have, as Mr. Roeder was referring to, we have, I won't say committed, but we have approved development in the total of 1,616 EDUs. That are currently approved and entitled. Now whoever gets to the application, is the winner, yes. Then we also have an additional 603 EDUs that are in some form of preliminary approval, and we'll be going forward for finals probably within the next, if everything goes well, hopefully within the next year. But as you know, development, it can seem to go fast and then slow down completely. Correct. Almost stop. So that's where we are with EDUs, to my understanding, with Public Works and the available EDUs we have and anticipate to have. So we're at like 2,100 if you add the preliminary approvals with the final approvals. So, and we will have approximately 2,600 when 17 goes live.
Just to clarify, you're talking EDUs for
Water sewer.
not
Available EDUs for city dwellings.
How do the impact fees play into this? Will each of these door steps be charged an impact fee? How is that gonna work? Are there requests to not charge those impact fees?
Impact fees will be assessed, but the impact fees do not pay for water sewer.
Nope, understand.
Yeah. There will be water and sewer availability fees per door. So you will have those, and those were what Mr. Schroeder was referring to earlier, I believe. Yes.
And then, Mr. Chairman, so with respect to development impact fees, there is a per
asking specifically for that reason. I want to know if we're giving concessions on impact fees at some point in any of the developments. And then my next question is going to be, how does a local improvement district work? I know Nampa has done local improvement districts as far as water and sewer over the years. How does that play into any of this? Is that something that can be captured on the local improvement district with these funds to help upgrade infrastructure out there?
Guessing the question's directed directly at me,
Yes,
so
sir.
yes,
Sorry.
local improvement districts are an option that are available. I don't know that they've been done here before, but they are something that can be done for infrastructure. Also, community infrastructure districts is another interesting tactic. I don't know if Mr. Weeks and company have entertained those. But it's required, and Keller, maybe not every year, but they do an analysis for for water and sewer of the adequacy of the connection fees for each of those to capture the requirements for expanding systems for newcomers as well. So that they're quite steep. But in terms of concessions, the city can't just grant a carte blanche exemption to development impact fees because they are based on certain assumptions about those doors. And so in order to get a walk back of those development impact fees, the developer would have to provide in-kind or monetarily matching system improvements for the systems that are impacted by that development. So they can get an offset for something that wouldn't be done otherwise. Now, if there's a disproportionate or an unfair assessment of a fee, if the use that they're building does not create an impact, there's a mechanism in the city code and in the requirement of the statute for that to be walked back. A good example would be the stick barn. I think the city just approved one for a parking structure for Idaho Power. If that isn't going to create an impact for services that requires a capital improvement, then the fee is not waived, it doesn't exist. That's the problem. You waive a fee, everyone else pays it, so it's not lawful to do that for specific development.
Well, I'm getting to the feeling, or I get the feeling that we're getting close to being asked to make a decision. And so we want to look at all the options available to the city to, if you're going to approve something, what options do we have available to make those decisions for local improvement districts, et cetera.
I also think, Mr. Chair, I think it's important that we establish when Bennett Ranch Parkway is built out and what phase of the developments that these turn lanes that are mentioned within the traffic impact study, and when we have that access to get out, we don't have a defined timeframe of when that will occur.
Agreed.
So I can tell you that the traffic impact study does say, for this one was a 2031 build out, that 35% of that build out, I think it was a full build out, would be utilizing that Bennett Ranch.
I believe there needs to be some conditions on this for sure. Specifically taking back to the Keller letter, but also with what you just stated as well. We need to have timelines in the phases of what's going to be built when and how. The Keller one concerns me a lot, and I'm glad you brought it up, because you are connecting to city sewer, and which means that eventually all 864 units
Plus the
will
commercial,
be into the city system. And you know, you talked about creating your own treatment plan and stuff out there, but then that means you would have to redo all of that to flow into your own treatment plan and stop from our treatment plan. Because otherwise you're flowing into both. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Fine. Not correct. So, we are not proposing that all 864 would connect. We're looking for connection of maybe one or two phases that provides an economic foundation or stability, at which case, hopefully a URA, so an urban renewal district. So that kind of answers the question that you have, Commissioner Mills.
Versus
that captures the wealth generated from those parcels of land, the taxes to fund it, so that it's not placing the entire burden onto one development. Because the intention of the development is that it is an economic benefit to the entire community. And one thing I'll mention as well is look at how many commercial or retail shops are leasing that aren't open. I've asked a few times from Chamber of Commerce for a list of companies that have, or businesses that have opened and closed over the last 5 years. That would be a good statistic to have. And then perhaps ask those that are still around, what were the challenges that you experienced? Why have you closed? And so we can guess, and I imagine that our guess is probably going to be educated. We just don't have enough foot traffic to patronize those businesses. So this is one of the ways that we believe we can mitigate or maybe even resolve that challenge. So what we're trying to do is not to escape paying for the impact on the community. Quite the opposite. We want to make sure that it's done in a way where we're not funding projects that aren't directly related to the impact of our proposed development. So if we have a well that then provides water to into the city system, and we're all attached to it, that makes sense if we're the ones using that water. And so the fees that have been collected in the past or that are assessed currently, they need to be paying for those developments that are going online right now, not us paying for it in the future, if that makes sense. So that's really what my concerns are, would be with the Keller. I mean, I don't see anything too concerning about it. It's just saying that, well, water's a problem. We live in the desert. We need to make sure we have water. We've got access just of non-potable water, 500 acre feet. If we take load off of Optimist and off of the golf course, that push all that water that's getting dumped onto the golf course and onto Optimist then goes back into the system. And that's, I believe, potable water.
My concerns are sewage.
Okay.
But you don't have the amount for what we have in lagoons, and you're claiming to put 2 phases into the sewer system. My guess is after phase 2, phase 3, 4, 5, and 6 are going to be on your sewer system. Is that my assumption?
The thing that I think we want to do is to create an avenue through our property taxes, not through others, but through our taxes, to capture some of that money and use it for the infrastructure that other towns are doing. So, because this is a competitive, we're competing with Caldwell, Nampa, 10 Mile, Meridian, Boise, and that's what they're doing. So we brought Doug Waterman down, who was the one that created the Caldwell Urban Renewal District, to educate them on how they expanded the city of Caldwell's Sky Ranch and North Ranch, and then out towards Highway 19. And they did that through URA. So if they're capturing the property taxes and they're not making the developer pay those fees, then the price of the ground per foot is less. So they're able to accommodate those businesses coming in by offering them, ground cheaper. Bennett Ranch, we've got $1 million in Bennett Ranch Parkway so far. I have to amortize that out per square foot. So if we continue to do that, Caldwell may be at $7 or $8 a square foot, we may be at 8 or 9 or 10. It all just comes down to a function of numbers. Our proposal, and I think Chris Curtis would agree, is this is ripe for an urban renewal district out there. It's new. It's not in an urban renewal district. It's bare ground that pays almost virtually no property taxes versus the build out. You capture an enormous amount of investment out there. 160 million from us, which is just a very small 50 acres out of
54.8.
By the time this thing's done, it'll be 1,500 acres or so of industry that creates jobs, that uses less water. Nobody's living there.
I don't disagree that I think this development is something that's needed and something that's important to the community, but I also want to make sure that we have the aspect of the impact that this development is going to have on the current community, which is what my biggest concern is. So I understand that what you're stating is that you are going to connect phase 1, and you're going to connect phase 2, and then beyond that, who's to say that phase 3 isn't connected, and 4 is connected, and 5 is connected, which is why I think
Well-
that's where the conditions need to be placed.
And I agree, but my opinion is we need to establish that URA by phase 2. I mean, there's no other owners out there, we want to do it, so we'd like to establish that sooner than later.
So, Mr. Chairman, I guess I have a question of either Mr. Curtis or Mr. Kellers regarding, it appears that this letter covers the entire scope of the completely built-out proposal versus the phases that we're kind of discussing tonight. Second question I have of Keller regarding both the water and the sewer is this hints that the connection fees are insufficient. So, by design, kind of like development impact fees, the sewer development fund and the water development fund are supposed to be self-sustaining. And those connection fees are to anticipate that growth. You can't make the new connections pay for inadequacies in the old connections. Same thing with development impact fees. And so, my question to Keller would be, what's the difference between the current rate of connection fees? Because each of these units will get a per door sewer fee and a water fee. And it's not cheap. And so is that revenue insufficient to make these for, let's say, the first phase? This is a question I have with Keller, but I think it's material to what you're trying to decide here. Secondly, I mean, I'm not aware, and Madam Brenda or Mr. Curtis could, that I'm not aware of it at any point the city using general fund revenue, property tax revenue to fund improvements to the sewer and water system. Those are wholly borne by the water users.
I would agree. I'm not
Chris has
familiar with
mentioned
that.
grants.
So, yeah, DEQ loans, DEQ grants, when we had to repair the lagoon and so forth, these are, your water bill and your sewer bill are what funds all of this. And so, if this development as done is insufficient, then it indicates that there wasn't an anticipation. I get the idea that a water pressure drop could require, that's a burden that wasn't anticipated or something that needs a special location. In terms of having to do another well, if there's enough doors there, that pays for the well with that connection fees. That's the premise of those connection fees. So I'd ask Kellers to clarify this letter, if this is gonna be the basis of the yay or nay on the whole project. Because as the project goes, then it should accumulate enough money to eventually punch a well. Mr. Reitz has indicated that he may or may not have the ability to import another well and drill it, but that depends on various DEQ approvals and this sort of thing. But he's indicated that, irrigation water is served through his existing water. So that's a point of clarification I think that's important in this discussion is, I'm not, Mr. Waterman is a colleague of mine and I'm actually a classmate, so I will be discussing with him the urban renewal facility for doing that. But that's not one I'm familiar with. I know this one is successful in helping revamp a downtown, but in terms of using a URA for a greenfield, that's new to me. But I'm happy to learn that. Literally a greenfield.
Currently. Only a little
No
bit.
buffer.
Only a little bit.
No buffer.
No buffer.
Commission, before you make any decisions based on whether or not, land use development should be approved or not, I strongly would encourage all of you to consider conditions. Because once this PUD is approved, there goes the chance for any conditions that you might have based on these 6 phases that are going to be built out. Now, from my understanding, preliminary plats will be coming to us at each phase. So this would be preliminary plat 1 that we're going to be discussing tonight. If The PUD calls for 864 units, but we're also going to do a preliminary plat for 72. Does that mean that
The preliminary plat is of the whole plat. It is for parcel A, B, and C.
Oh, it's for 864.
But
that's
it's
not what that says right there?
But it's
Their
not-
first phase, when they come to final, that's just saying that their first phase will be those 72 units. The plat in and of itself is for the entire A, B, and C parcel.
So basically, if we,
I would prefer to go at this one at a time. To do an entire, like, blanket, that's concerning to me, because you're going to have a lot of issues with conditions and things that may be a problem. But to come with one thing at a time makes a little bit more sense to me, instead of saying 864 blanket and here we go. Because there's a lot of issues that are coming up with capacity of water and sewer and density and other things that, I mean, traffic. We don't know time frames when it comes to traffic build out and things like that. So having a blanket of 864 units does not sit well. I mean, to see it from each phase, I would probably say, all right, now phase 2, we need to consider this traffic. Or we need to consider, okay, you hooked up 2 phases, now where are we going to go with our next phase? That's what I would like to see. I do not feel comfortable signing off on an entire full-on 864 unit build out.
Karen, how does that affect the way you have this designed right now, this 864 units? If you say, hey, let's do it by phases, how does that affect or not affect you?
Commissioners, I think Dan and I can express our real appreciation for the concern. Really, I mean, I live here. I think the direct answer to both of your question is, what are the mechanisms to make sure to safeguard in the event that we have a real problem and a challenge? And so I believe that even with 864 units, the safeguard is at the building permit phase. So entitlement is one thing, I think Commissioner Drake's mentioned this, and then building permits are entirely different, especially for commercial development, which this is, so multifamily apartments are commercial developments. Running through plan reviews and the sort goes back through Brenda, goes through her, from her to Hank, and then from Hank, I think there's a third-party plan reviewer. So at this point, if there's problems with capacity, it can get stopped. She would call me, Brenda calls me and says, I've got some information for you. We're having problems, we can't service the apartments, or something of the sort. Okay, so I think built into the system already, there are mechanisms to stop it. It's not, at this point, especially with a preliminary plat, we have carte blanche to do whatever we want. We don't. So hopefully that assuages any concern. Now to the second part. We built into it 3 parcels. It's not by building, and it's not necessarily, well, it's not by phase either. So, I'm using my hands to show it. The first phase includes a chunk, so 72 units, community building, all the infrastructure necessary on a parcel. It does include an additional 24-unit building, plus a retail pad of 12,000 square feet, to be built later. I hate to say this, if there's a difference between, yes, we would like to recommend it for approval, to just say, our condition is that once those 72 units come online, we reassess a preliminary plat, I think that would be acceptable to us, because we want to do what's right. If there's not capacity, we're not going to bring it forward. We want to find solutions, so I'll reiterate what Dan has said. We think a really good funding mechanism is a URA. We've talked about LIDs, so LIDs. The URA, we have one. It's palpable, it's tangible. We can see the effects of it right now. We think it's a wonderful way to capture the value and the monies through tax revenue in that parcel of land, so it has no effect on the rest of the community. However, it does provide that tax revenue to then go in for, or excuse me, to pay for infrastructure improvements. So, with Mr. Waterman, so we did speak to the existing URA that we have about that, either expanding or creating a new one. And so, we feel pretty confident that it could be successful and pay for the infrastructure improvements to remove the concern about capacity.
One thing I might correct a little bit is we can't expand the existing one because it's about to sunset. So they have a lifespan, a term. So creating a new one starts that term anew. The old one can't be expanded. It's gonna sunset and that's the end of it. So we're looking forward for the next 20, 25 years of taking some of that money and building infrastructure. At the sunset, it just goes to the city. All that infrastructure, all the investment put into it goes to the city, including the tax money.
With respect to Commissioner Mills' question about in the PV ordinance, shall include an expected development schedule. So setting the development agreement and schedule and time of this development.
Mr. Chair, there is a caveat for a development schedule, but it's as, I believe it's termed as the market allows or something.
Currently, the verbiage says that, that's correct.
Something similar, so.
My name's Kelly Perryman, 917 south of Lante, Boise, Idaho.
Kelly's our contractor.
Yeah, I've been developing for quite a while. A lot of times in other situations like this, we're held by a development agreement contract with a city. So, and we've done this before where we've had the PV fully approved. At each phase, we have to meet certain criteria in the development agreement before where the city allows us to move on to the next phase. So it's really, from a time constraint, if we have to come in at each phase and have city council P and Z, it's gonna take forever, because we know how long it takes to get approved. And so what we've done in the past is just get the PUD approved, and then the development agreement ties us to the requirements we have to do to move to the next phase.
Mr. Chair, one additional thing I want to discuss that we haven't touched on yet. This development currently exceeds the parking requirements. Residential is 2 per unit. Then they've done their commercial component. Looking at phase 1, or we'll just say parcel A, they do meet those minimum requirements. However, it doesn't allow for guest parking with regards to here, and so it's not mentioned if the intent is for off-street parking with regards to that extra. And the same is true of parcel C, where we do have a maximum, or the excess of parking is in parcel B. So until, and also within the development agreement, it does state that the commercial spaces will have signage that says for commercial parking only, something to that effect. So that which is a consideration with regards to guest parking. You have 864 residential units, and I believe there's an extra 103 spaces available for those excess.
How many parking spots are there for each?
2 per residential, and then it is 1 per every 400 square feet for the commercial. And there's 16.
That's an additional 100.
They are, oh yes, they are over parking for minimum requirements. As I mentioned, it doesn't say if there's going to be off-street, when that Bradford or Jerome or Helen's Way You know, whether that's gonna be the on-street parking allowance to make up for some additional spaces. I don't know if the applicants considered the guest parking with regards to outside of, that extra 103 spaces.
I want to make it clear, I don't think that it's something that shouldn't be done. I love the idea, I love what you're bringing, I love that it's going to bring something to the community. But if you read the comprehensive plan, it's called Smart Growth for a reason. And it is our responsibility as the commission to make sure that we are doing it in a very smart and ethical and economic way. So it's been a long time since we've seen something this big come across our table. The last one was lightning, and I think that was the biggest one, and that was only 200 something. So I don't take these lightly, and I want to make sure that the rest of the community is also taken care of as well. I love the idea because of what I think you guys are going to bring, but to plan it without thinking through everything would be poor planning, and we need to be smart planners first.
Mr. Chairman, could we have a private with Mr. Schroeder? They talked about that, a couple of questions I'd like to ask.
That'd be a shorter question.
I think
Like a meeting aside. I know Paul does that with councilmen from time to time when they have a question about how to proceed on those.
okay, yeah, let's,
Do I need to go into
I
discuss
would
for a
love
minute?
for you to come in.
yeah, you can, yeah, I would say recess.
Okay, I will call, how long does this meeting take?
5 minutes.
Okay, I will call recess for 5 minutes.
Anyone needs to go to the facility, now's your chance.
Get a ticket.
It's a big. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you for that time. Yes.
I just want to clarify this for the record. One of the new commission members had a procedural question about how to go and what the legal options were. I met with him and the chair. One thing we discussed was how the procedure would go with legal options. But there was no substantive discussion about the merits of the proposal. So
Okay, with that being said,
So I'd like to make a motion to table this to the next PZ meeting.
and reopen the public hearing.
And reopen the public hearing.
So that's to a date certain, so that we don't need to redo.
okay, so I do have a motion. I do need a second on that if that motion wants to go through.
Second.
Okay, I'm the second with Christina. With that being said, I do need to go through. Philip?
Aye.
Billy?
Aye.
Tina? And, okay, aye for me as well. This will be tabled until our next P&Z meeting, which is the date of
6th of August.
Thank you. 6th of August.
6th of August. And oh, wow. Public hearing will remain open. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
The reason for that, Mr. Chairman, is this will allow us to get the response to my question of Keller about the adequacy of the connection fees to cover necessary improvements. So we're taking the information into the record that you will be.
Okay. Because it has been tabled to the next meeting, that means our next action item will be also tabled until our next meeting as well. With that being said, we will see you all again in August. And from that on forward through our agenda, ladies and gentlemen, there is nothing else, which means we will adjourn at 12.